You ever sit in a dark room after a loss and watch the tape, and slowly realize the opponent was running plays you didn't even see in real time? That's where we are today. The game is over. We lost. But the film doesn't lie. And neither does history. 2,000 years ago, a sickly 18-year-old kid named Octavian was handed a Rome that had been bleeding out for a century. Civil wars, political assassinations, staggering corruption, broken promises from every senator who ever grabbed a mic. Sound familiar? Today we're breaking down the tape, not of a football game, of how one man turned the biggest political collapse in Western history into the greatest comeback story ever told. And here's the part nobody talks about. He didn't start as a hero. He started as the villain. Today on Coaches Training, the art of losing, and the stoic legend who rebuilt Rome. 98 days, the clock is running, and we are deep in the film room now. This is the Coaches Training series, where we don't do pep talks, we break down tape. And today's tape is 2,000 years old, but every false formation on the screen looks exactly like what you've been watching in American politics. Let's set the board. Rome, 1st century BC. The republic that had conquered the Mediterranean world couldn't govern itself anymore. The Senate was a circus of bribery and factional violence. Populist warlords promised reform, seized power, and got rich. Sound familiar? Because here's the play. Promise the people everything. Deliver nothing. Blame the system you broke. Repeat. Octavian was 18 when Julius Caesar was assassinated. He inherited a name, a fortune, and a civil war. Cicero called him the boy. Mark Antony dismissed him as a footnote. Within 15 years, Antony was dead by his own sword, and the boy was the sole ruler of the known world. But here's the part the history books rush past. The young Octavian was not a good man. He executed 300 senators on an altar. He starved cities into surrender. He was ruthless, calculating, and absolutely terrifying to anyone who crossed him. This is the part of the tape we need to watch closely. The historian James Hankins put it perfectly. He wrote, "After decades of reckless violence, political instability, economic misery, betrayals, cruelty, and staggering levels of corruption, what happened next in Roman history comes to the historian as almost a complete surprise." What happened next? Rome didn't collapse. Rome became the greatest empire the ancient world had ever seen, and the man who made that happen was the same man who had been the most ruthless warlord of his generation. Let that sink in. The guy running the prescription lists, the kill lists, became the architect of the Pax Romana, 200 years of peace and prosperity. How? 1. He studied the film. Augustus didn't just defeat his enemies, he understood why Rome kept producing civil wars. He diagnosed the disease, not just the symptoms. The Republic's institutions were designed for a city-state, not an empire of 50 million. 2. He built systems, not a cult of personality. He called himself princeps, first citizen. Not emperor, not dictator, not king. He staffed his administration with talent, not loyalists. His right-hand man Agrippa wasn't a noble. He was a capable general from a wealthy but unremarkable family. Augustus surrounded himself with people who could do the job, not people who would tell him what he wanted to hear. 3. He understood that power is a tool, not a destination. I found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble. That's not vanity, that's infrastructure. Aqueducts, roads, a professional civil service, systems that outlived him by centuries. Now, let's talk about why you need to hear this today. You were told you were on the right side of history. You wore the hat. You went to the rallies. You believed the promises. And then the promises broke. Tariffs that were supposed to protect workers, they didn't. The swamp that was going to be drained, still there, just different alligators. The budget that was going to put America first. And now the betrayals are so routine that a broken promise doesn't even make the front page anymore. Here's what Augustus understood that your old party never will. Winning the war is not the same as winning the peace. Civil wars end, but the conditions that produced them, the corruption, the broken institutions, the people who have been lied to so many times they can't recognize truth anymore, Those don't disappear when one side surrenders. Rome's civil wars ended at Actium in 31 BC, but Rome wasn't rebuilt in a year. It took Augustus 4 decades. The question isn't, how do we win the next election? The question is, what are you building that outlasts you? All right, time to watch your own tape. Compass check. 4 questions, 0 to 10. Higher numbers mean you're ready to face this. Be honest. The film doesn't lie. Question 1. When you look at the political movement you used to belong to, and you really study the tape, not the hype, how clearly can you see the corrupt plays they were running that you missed in real time? 0 is, still can't see anything wrong. 10 is, I can diagram every fake formation they ran on me. Question 2. Augustus spent 15 years as the villain before he became the statesman. How ready are you to name the corruption you personally enabled, the things you defended, the arguments you repeated, the checks you wrote, the votes you cast? 0 is not ready to look in that mirror. 10 is, I've already started making that list. Question 3. Here's the one that separates the spectators from the builders. What specific corruption are you willing to stand up against, publicly, with your name on it? Not just walking away quietly, standing up. 0 is, I'm not there yet, I just need to heal. 10 is, tell me where to show up, I'm ready to be counted. Question 4. Augustus didn't just defeat corruption, he replaced it with systems that outlasted him by centuries. On a scale of 0 to 10, how ready are you to move from outrage to architecture? From, look what they did to, here's what I'm building. 0 is, I'm still processing the anger. 10 is, hand me the blueprint. Write those numbers down, especially question 3. Because here's the truth. Leaving quietly is the first step. But standing up, that's where sovereignty begins. That's the moment you stop being a former supporter and start being a citizen again. Coach's desk. Let's chart. The promise. The movement told you that loyalty would be rewarded, that you were the real Americans, that the corruption would be rooted out, that you were on the inside of something righteous. The fact. The promises broke, the corruption deepened, the loyalty flowed one direction, up, and you're sitting in a dark room watching tape, wondering when you became the mark. The gap. That space between what you were promised and what actually happened, that's not a failure of your judgment. That's the gap the sextant measures. Augustus inherited the same gap. He didn't fill it with more promises, he filled it with marble. Your values, respect, truth, courage, legacy. These aren't slogans, these are the infrastructure Augustus understood. You don't rebuild a republic with rallies, you rebuild it with institutions, relationships, and the slow, unglamorous work of earning back trust, starting with your own. Your bearing. Stop defining yourself by what you're against. The opponent's playbook keeps you so angry you never stop to build. Augustus didn't spend his reign talking about Mark Antony, he spent it building aqueducts. Your bearing is northeast, toward the Oasis, toward the 4 coordinates: values, purpose, identity, financial sovereignty. Toward a life where your vote, your money, and your legacy belong to you, not to a gang that never deserved your loyalty. Here's the question I want you to bring to the round table tonight. What's one corrupt play your old political movement ran, that you defended at the time, that you can now see clearly on the tape? And what are you going to do about it? Name it, don't soften it. Then tell us the second part, the action. Because here's what Augustus teaches us. Seeing the corruption is step 1. Standing against it is step 2. Building something better is the whole game. Let me leave you with this. Suetonius tells us that on his deathbed, Augustus asked, "Have I played my part well in the comedy of life?" Then he added, "If I have pleased you, kindly show your appreciation with a warm goodbye." A man who had ordered executions, who had starved cities, who had waded through blood to get to the throne, spent his final moments asking if he had done enough good to outweigh all of it. That's not vanity. That's the question every human being who has ever walked away from a dark past has to face. Did I build more than I broke? The clock is at 98 days. The tape is in front of you. The opponent's formations are circled in red, and the coach is asking you one question: what corruption are you willing to stand up against? Starting today.